Archiable. He is an architect who has designed studios and does kind of what this whole class is about, engineering, and puts it all together and makes them work. He also has a pretty cool museum, from what it sounds like, with a lot of camera equipment. So take it away.
Wow. Hi guys. Yeah. So this is an engineering class, I take it, for media, content media, and
So we can't use the word engineer, it's multimedia.
multimedia. Well, it's saying like broadcasting is no longer broadcasting.
We're not allowed to say the word broadcasting.
Content media, 32 venues of what used to be called broadcasting, data, print media, and so on. So give you about 30 minutes in 5 parts. You can count them down. You're welcome to take any notes or take any pictures or whatever.
They all have to take notes because they all have to write 3 paragraphs about what you talk about today.
Oh, we'll give you all the acronyms today, and then we'll have a test at the end, see if you remember.
Paragraph.
For those who keep awake. So,
Try video impression. Are you serious on that?
Yes. What?
we need something?
No, he just wanted to make sure that I was serious.
Oh, does
Sometimes I'm not.
I can't tell. You're not serious?
No, I am serious.
No, you are serious.
Yes, read your.
Well, he's recording it so you can play it back at midnight tonight.
Last night.
That would probably.
So here's the deal. I kind of knew at like 7 years old what I wanted to be in my lifetime, and now I'm 100 years old, and dinosaurs used to roam the earth when I started all this. And I went on this Cub Scout tour when I was 7 years old. My mom was a den mother, and it was at WKRC TV in Cincinnati, and they were just buying new cameras. My dad was the engineer doing the studios there, and I was pretty much mesmerized over the cameras on tripods and the architects running around with their blueprints under their arms. And I just knew right then, this is what I wanted to be. I wanted to be an architect, I wanted to be in entertainment, and specifically in the growth of, at that time, television and where it was going to go. So I would get in trouble in school drawing pictures of beams of light coming out of lenses of cameras and get in trouble for it, and now I make a living at it. So it was a great start that really triggered me to just be infatuated with film and cinema and television. And back then, it wasn't quite black and white, it wasn't color, I'm not that old, but it was film, and it was film in television, A-roll and B-roll film for news, and 2-camera shoots. So I was intrigued by Cecil B. DeMille and basically Stanley Kubrick, these kind of folks that were doing really outrageous things. Ernie Kovacs, the guys from the 50s and the 60s that were doing television, cinema, film, but they were taking it out of the box. They were turning cameras upside down. They were doing things with lighting being a huge part of this. Back then, just before even quartz was invented, the old Kliegel lights, which took a room this size for the power to power it and the cooling to recover the temperatures in it. So when you look at like FM was invented in 1934, and it didn't really become radio as my generation knew it till 1958. Took all those years. They didn't know what to do with FM radio. In the beginning, it was AM radio, amplitude modulation, and it was scratchy and it was horrible. And then FM was discovered that it could play rock and roll and LP records at this fantastic quality of sound. This really rich, right channel, left channel, stereo. And so that really opened up a whole new world for where that was going. So right now there are 1,880 TV stations, commercial TV stations in America, and 388 PBS stations. So we've got about 2,400 television stations in America. All of this is going to change. All of it's going to change, not only in your generation, but over the next 3 to 5 years. So in 4 little parts today, I thought I would share with you how that has been, where it's going, and how it's going to change. And then leaving about 10 minutes for you guys to just tear me apart on questions and answers and say, what's that all about? Are you lying? This is crazy. So there are 4 or 5 conventions that basically over the years, honestly, if you can scrape all the money together and go this year to the NAB convention, this will be my 46th NAB convention since 1979 when I was in school. And this is where we learn what the new toys are going to be. There are actually 4 conventions. There's one in Vegas in April. There's one in September called the IBC in Amsterdam. I've gone to those every year. These 2 in particular, plus the CES convention, which just was in January, Consumer Electronics, these kind of write the rules for where television equipment, film equipment, equipment, cinematography's gonna go, and how it's gonna change. This is where like the Apple Watch is introduced. This is where 8K24G, which I'm gonna talk about, is introduced. These come out at these seminars and white papers, and you have to almost go there to keep up. Because when I was your age, everything was linear. Now it's logarithmic. Every 3 months, it changes. The studios that I'm building right now for Netflix and for CBS are smart studios. They are not with camera specific or audio boards, or they're empty racks because everybody brings their own toy. They bring their own 8K, 4K. They bring their own 7.1 surround sound AES audio. They bring their own microphones. Because if the studios that I'm designing or the boxes we're building are meant for like a certain type of camera or a certain type of audio element, it's obsolete in 3 to 4 months. So over all the years that I've been in this, I've been given all this equipment because it was destined for Mr. Dumpster because the new toys were coming out. There's nothing wrong with the toys I have. You all are invited to come see this crazy museum. I've got about 100 cameras, 400 microphones. I've got some very famous microphones from NBC. The Nixon-Kennedy debate mics, the Amos and Andy mics, the Johnny Carson's New York mic, David Letterman's mic. And these are all things that went obsolete. That's why they gave them to me. And that's how much all this here is going to change. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. So I had an uncle that really told me, great guy, you just never know what's in front of you. That's a great line to write down, actually. Because once you get the degree, once you get out of school, so in architecture, I was glad, I thought I was going to change the world like Frank Lloyd Wright when I got out, and Mies van der Rohe, and Louis Sullivan, and all these dudes, and Buckminster Fuller. I was happy to get an Arby's. I was happy to get a gas station. Because in the beginning, you're just fresh, and school fills you with all these dreams you're going to be. But guess what? If you dream it, you can do it. Because I did it. I'm the most lucky guy you could ever met. I just love what I do and do what I love. Every day's a weekend. Because if you're really paid to do all this stuff, I left a family business with guaranteed wealth. My father wrote me out of his will to go work for Taft Broadcasting in Cincinnati. My undergraduate degrees are in electrical engineering, Bachelor of Science in Architecture, and industrial design. And I did not want to take over the family business. So I, on a whim, went after the chairman of Taft Broadcasting in Cincinnati, which owned Hanna-Barbera Pictures, Kings Island, Paramount Pictures at the time, which is ironic because I'm just finishing up Paramount Pictures for CBS right now. It all came full circle. And I went to work for Taft, which had 36 television stations at the time. And the idea was, at that time, was to change the technology of all these stations. Because even back then, in 1984, it was going from a complete swing into the beginnings of digital and where digital was going to go, okay? So my first job actually was to redo Hanna-Barbera Studios. You probably don't even know what Hanna-Barbera is here. It's Fred Flintstone and, and all that. And I think it's so funny because we talk about microphones. When I was doing it, I kept saying, Mel Blanc was the guy that did a lot of the voices. And I kept pestering this guy that was the head of the building. I said, so where's this microphone? Where's this 7070X RCA microphone? And he said, I don't know, it's around here somewhere. I said, oh, it's just probably lost. Well, 6 months after I finished the job, I got a box in the mail, which was Mel Blanc's voiceover mic, where he did Tweety Bird, Bugs Bunny, and all that. And it says, nothing is ever lost, it's just misplaced. And so it's a real treasure, because when you think of the history of what that man did, who had 2 nervous breakdowns and went bankrupt before he became famous. So did Walt Disney, by the way. So the point of this, you never know what's out in front of you line, is kind of a power line, really. So I've watched television go from film to black and white to color, to image orthicon tubes, to vidicon tubes, to charge coupled device chips. Does everybody in the room know what a CCD chip is? Okay, there's our first little learning tool here. Oh, we on the test.
So what's on that test? I already took a test.
So in Cincinnati, where I grew up, there was a company called Ralston Purina Dog Food Company. And they did cereal, and they did mostly dog biscuits and things like that. And so they had these assembly lines, and so my college, which was the University of Cincinnati, in industrial design, they designed a chip that could count the boxes as it went through. And it would count dog food boxes. Well, what they found out is that that chip had a very high acuity video display on it as the boxes went by, which created probably the most dynamic element of the change of video pickup in this century. Because all the tubes went away, the gas tubes, which were arsenic, were plumicons and saticons and lead. All those went away, and this little tiny chip, which you have in your phone right now, called a CCD chip, replaced that. So I've watched that kind of go through all these changes to the internet. So I was at NBC in Washington in 1996. I was the station manager of WRC. I worked for Tim Russer, who was my boss, who was the old Meet the Press guy, who was the president of NBC's news. And we had a luncheon kind of like this. And we had this guy, Chris Crosswhite, come in, and he said, we're going to talk about this new thing called the World Wide Web. Wow. And this company called Intel, who can really do this thing for computers. And my boss, not Tim, but the other boss, from the network said, he was like, I don't know, he was about 70 at the time. He said, yeah, like that's going to catch on. Yeah, World Wide Web, right? Hey, that's really cool. It's a really nice thought, right? Well, kind of did catch on a little bit. But that was kind of thinking of managers at the time. So right now we're in what's called the 5th generation of the Industrial Revolution. If you thought that, I don't know. The first bubble of 4 is the railroads, the first telephone, phonograph, probably some newspaper. Bubble number 1 was the beginning of the whole swing to where media was going to change. Bubble number 2 introduced the advancement of AM radio, and it brought into motion picture the film industry from 1910 to about 1930, which is the early beginnings of Eric von Stromheim and all these guys that were doing really weird things from film. They were pushing film, if you know what that means. They were really experimenting with lighting. So the 3rd bubble is television, and which sprinkles in FM radio. And so television went from black and white up until 1953. My first station, WMAQ in Chicago, was the first color broadcast picture. And those were TK41 RCA cameras, which cost a fortune at the time. And stations could only own like 2 or 3. The acuity on your iPhone was like 1,000,000 times higher quality than what these cameras were. But this really revolutionized everything. And RCA, Radio Corporation of America, owned by NBC, really was the start of this. It really took it off. The 4th generation is the internet, the web. It's the now. It's the where it's going to go digitally. It was the swing from analog to digital. And that 4th bubble is where we're really floating into what would be the 5th, which is right now. And all of you are going to live it in your future. And you're coming, especially in 3 to 5 years, you're going to see a tremendous swing, which I'm going to share some of that with you. So the technology innovations that really are changing this, it's really a cultural change. It's a time when viewership, especially this room age group, especially Gen Z, and who's watching what, is quite outrageous. And that is driving the force of ownership networks. So right now, when I was young, there were only 3 networks, ABC, CBS, and NBC. And when Fox came along, everybody laughed, okay? There was a book, a very famous book, and it's out there. If you can find it on the internet, grab it. I have a first edition signed by this guy, but it's called 3 Blind Mice. And it's about the 3 blind mice being ABC, NBC, CBS, okay? And they thought, HBO, cable, we're the power monsters. Nobody's ever going to touch us. Well, guess what happened? The power monster took them over. I have a memo that I found in an old file from NBC New York. Basically is mocking that anybody other than the Three Blind Mice could ever be anything in America. And this was in 1979. It's actually laughing at cable. And of course in 1980, MTV came out, which was just, from my generation, just, can you imagine watching videos, let alone FM great sounding, videos of rock bands 24 hours a day. And I ended up working on that development of the MTV after that. So when you look at, like, when I started at Taft, that was a world that completely went away. And then I bought, with some other fellows, 4 ABC affiliates out west. And we changed them into the new generation of what basically could be in video entertainment and audio entertainment. And when we did that, there was an article in Broadcast and Cable magazine that said, look what these guys have pulled off out west. And so I got a call. I was in Kearney, Nebraska, which is in the middle of nowhere. And if it's not the middle of nowhere, you can see it from there, on I-80. And it was a lady, Mary Catherine Rousseau, who said, Mr. Archibald, I have Al Jerome on the phone. He would like to speak with you. And Al Jerome at that time was the president of NBC, right after Grant Tinker. And I said, you gotta be kidding me, who put you up to this? And she said, I assure you this is legitimate and he would like to speak with you. And so I get this guy on the phone and he goes, Don, so what the hell are you doing out in Kearney, Nebraska? And I about pooped my pants. I could not believe that this really was him. And he said, look, we've seen what you've done. I was 32 years old at the time. He said, we're gonna build a new station and a new tower in Cleveland, Chicago, called the NBC Tower. And we're thinking we would like you to be our architect. So I went into they flew me from Kearney, actually Lincoln, Nebraska, to Chicago. And after 8 interviews, they hired me with what became my 22 years of career with the NBC network. I became the corporate architect of the network for the majority of my life, actually. And built the NBC Tower in Chicago, WMAQ, $110 million, 42-story building. I could not believe that they were paying me money to do this. This goes back to my TV camera WKRC Cub Scout tour, where I was actually not only doing the building, I did the Seoul Korea Olympics buildings, which put parallel at the same time. So with that, they promoted me to NBC in New York to do the $308 million renovation of 30 Rock, Rockefeller Center, which we rebuilt Saturday Night Live, Studio 8H. We rebuilt David Letterman, Studio 6A, the old Johnny Carson studio. We rebuilt the Today Show to Studio 1A, live from NBC in New York. And it was probably the greatest opportunity I could have ever had in my life. And then I went on to do the Barcelona Olympics as well, and Atlanta Olympics.
That's a great building to go check out too.
What's that?
30 Rocks is a great building to go take a tour of.
Oh, God, yeah, if you ever go to New York.
It's amazing.
And I did the tour when I've been there with, where you can actually be on Saturday Night Live and sit in front of the green screen and all. But yeah, it's a great building, 1932 built, that was gonna be the change of all media. And so Saturday Night Live is in Studio 8H, which is the old Arturo Toscanini RCA recording studio, which at that time was the largest stage in America. And all the floors are designed on springs for vibration and acoustics. It's an amazing building. And to be a part of that, I can't tell you how blessed. I mean, I look back at just the good fortune of having this dream of what you want to do and then getting to actually walk through these places. And so I did all the renovations Saturday Night Live. Right now I'm working with Greg Harris, who's my neighbor. I live in Chagrin Falls, by the way. And he's the CEO of the Rock Hall. And we're going to do a Saturday Night Live replica. He asked me to design a replica of Saturday Night Live and then honor the 50 bands for 50 years that have been the top 50 bands in the Rolling Stones and all that. So this is really, one thing just bleeds to another kind of thing. So all of that has been great. I finished my broadcast career about the year 2000. And then decided that I really just wanted to be an architect. I just really, all this like baloney news, and it is all fake news, trust me, it was enough for the glamour had completely worn off. I was running Washington, D.C. when OJ went through the trials. when Oklahoma City was blown up, when Karen Smith drowned her babies in the car. I saw all the videos of plane crashes with people broken in half and all that. I had about enough, and that was it. So I wanted to just go into be an architect. And so a firm, Gensler, you've ever heard of them? Arthur Gensler at the time was the largest architectural firm in America. They came to my office at NBC in Washington and they said, we have a rumor that you're tired of doing this. Want to come with us? And we'll make you chairman of one of 7 of our divisions. And our first client is going to be George Lucas. And we're going to design a Lucas operation and Big Rock Ranch, which was a $1.2 billion assignment. And all in Frank Lloyd Wright architecture. And we did dinners with, you guys, I guess, do know Star Wars and all that, right?
Is that where the Millennial Falcon supposedly hidden somewhere on his range?
Oh, yeah. Actually, when we went into his office, it's a good segue. Went into his office, which is like, this gigantic library with ladders going up for all the books that he got all the ideas from. And there's R2-D2 and 3CPO, if you know the little things that were in there. And they were the original prototypes that were in them, but they had like 4 of them for the movie, but this was the original. And they had these shriveled up things on fishing line in a case, a glass case. And I said, gotta ask you, what are those? He said, those were the first asteroids on film. But he did all this in 16mm film in the beginning, and he did asteroids on clotheslines with pulleys. And these were the original asteroids, which were shriveled up potatoes. But that's just how far we've come. You all can do this on your kitchen table now on a laptop, and like anything on imaginable. And look what he did with effects to do that. So I went to work for them, and they did make me chairman of one of the 7 divisions. And the whole thing with Lucas, the fees on the George Lucas job were $100 million for the architects. This was a good gig. Your architecture building across the street was $48 million. It's a beautiful building. I doubt if the fees were that high for the architects out in New York. But the point of this is how much all of this has changed, even when you look at the Lucas things and Kubrick and where things are in cinematography today. So to just share with you a couple of the things that, I need my trigger words here. I just threw these together from last convention. So you've got linear television. Does everybody know what that is? Linear is OTA. That's the language. We'll start with our acronyms here. Over the air. So there's 11 towers out on Parma Hill that are all 1,400 feet. I've done 2 of the transmitters out there. They're all going away. The 1,880 television towers in America, in Miami, they're 2,000 foot tall. In Atlanta, they're 1,800 foot tall. They're all going to go away. And they're going to be replaced by 400,000 400-foot towers, which are basically cell phone company towers. So what drives this, if you can imagine 3 bubbles. I'm killing you guys with bubbles, right? You have the 5 bubbles of culture change. Now you got the 3 bubbles of how this is changing, and it's right now. It completed last summer. So if you can visualize bubble number 1 as the NAB, National Association of Broadcasters, represents 2,000 stations. It is entertainment as we've all grown up with. It is over the air. It is called linear television, okay? Non-linear, by the way, is streaming media and all the things that go that way. The center bubble is our government, our beloved government. Nothing to do with Republican or Democrat. It's the U.S. Treasury Department. It is the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, and our government. And the third bubble, or in the beginning it was 4 cell phone companies, now it's 3. AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, and Sprint merged. The third bubble wants all the spectrum from the first bubble, okay? And the government, in their infinite wisdom, and again, nothing by parties or anything like that, because we've had 4 chairmen of the FCC since then, they decided that they would set out $1 trillion for this change, to buy the spectrum from the broadcasters and sell it at a higher rate to the cell phone companies. That has been completed. I did 175 of the stations that made some of this, but the footprint in the beginning. So right now we're going through a transition of that spectrum is the golden goose. So if you look at the if I was doing a death by PowerPoint today, I would have a big chart of the FCC spectrum. Only the center blue part is this magic golden goose part, and that's the golden part worth $1 trillion. So TV stations were given, CBS in New York was given $1 billion for their spectrum. The stations here in town got 300 to 400 million for their spectrum. Most of it's taken place right now. Still a little bit of over-the-air going on. You still get television with a coat hanger, but that's all going away. Because this is called the repack, or the incentive auction. The incentive auction is now pretty much complete. It has introduced the first acronym that we're going to really play with, which is the most significant of this whole little chat. I guess I'm okay on time, right? 15 minutes? I can do 10 minutes, wrap up. So the first thing is called something called ATSC, and that is the Advanced Television Standards Commission. So forever and ever and ever and ever, there have been standards called NTSC. The T's is not twice the same color or whatever, because it doesn't work so great. Now ATSC is the standard, not for the world, but for America. And there's a version called 3.0. ATSC 3.0 is going to change everything to bring everything over to the cell phone company distribution. That's where it's going to come out of.
There's that map we looked at in class.
What's that?
I showed them a map of where that 3.0.
Oh, yeah, so you've
Yeah.
talked about
Yeah, yeah,
ATSC.
yeah.
Okay, great. And so that, and by the way, that's cooking. I mean, it's moving right now. So this introduces us to AI, VR, AR, AD, IoT, OTT, IOU, whatever. There's about 40 acronyms. Virtual reality, augmented reality, machine learning, IoT, Internet of Things, OTT, over the top. Over the top box is the box that is referred to the conversion from what was television to nonlinear, to streaming media. And in the beginning, there was only one streaming media biggie. And who would that have been? Maybe. That brings movies into your house. That's the king. In the beginning was the only one. Netflix. Okay? And they were the kahuna. They were the only game in town that was going up about this. And there were folks, especially investors, that were laughing at them and saying, you gotta give me a break. These guys are who's gonna watch all this stuff on a computer? Well, guess where it is now, and guess what? There are 24 streaming competitors to Netflix. I've worked on probably 6 of the stages that are providing this kind of thing, and these stages, architecturally, are smart buildings. They're intelligent buildings. They're not built to have a certain bandwidth or audio or AES format. They're built to handle any toy that can plug into it that will deliver a signal. So it's all about bandwidth and the bandwidth in the walls. And now that the cell phones are taking it over, it's passing this thing called 8K24G. 8K24G was introduced at Amsterdam a year ago. I saw the actual demo in the Netherlands that nobody could believe this technology on a single whisker, on a single, like one of my thinning hairs, okay, on my head, can run the city of Cleveland. And I know that sounds a little bizarre, but it not only can run it at open bandwidth, it can run it from Dubai to the Cleveland Clinic without latency, no delay. And the Cleveland Clinic is using it from Dubai and Toronto and other places to do surgery, where a surgeon in Dubai says, cut where I tell you, instantly without delay. High acuity video, and the surgeon cuts in Cleveland, where the other guy tells him to. Okay, this is pretty much a dynamic change. I did the Olympic, or the Super Bowl thing for CBS last year. It was Fox this year. Yeah, ABC, Fox. Last year, we built a multi-million-dollar control room for the Super Bowl, and it was about utilizing AK-24G and really broadcast that to the world, which was a 200 million person viewing audience on all platforms. 120 million on video, but on all platforms, 200 million. That was a staggering historic event. So when you look at these things, I know I'm boring everybody to tears, that or you're gonna be the most popular person at your cocktail party inside. I just scribbled down like 5 or 6 things that are just really like the trigger that's doing all this. If I just see the first word, I can take off. So I'm old, I have to see a trigger word. First one is integration of AI and the cloud. So right now, Mark Zuckerberg is building a huge $1 billion box in the rural part of Louisiana that's really going to change all the distribution that's going to be capable of merging all these things that I just shared with you in AI. It is really, I mean, Adobe has had it forever. That train has left. This is about content everywhere, live, no latency. This is going to be scalable security aside, because everybody's worried about the security, and take a picture and a program anywhere in the world. We're now connected globally. Second thing is data analytics. Data analytics right now is proving to be the highest paid position for any graduate from a university in the country. IT person meets business person. Nerd meets suit. Bring them together. A couple of universities are really keying in on this. This changes everything for the ability of the rack room like you have in your other room in there. It's going to be a different rack room, okay? Cluster casting, you might want to jot that down. Narrow casting, you might want to jot that down. Data casting. Cluster casting is going on like in New Orleans right now. It's taking a demographic, which is called designated market area, a DMI, okay? DMI? Yeah, at DMA. We're 19 here in Cleveland, by the way. New York is 1, Los Angeles is 2, Chicago's 3, and so on. Washington 7. Okay, it takes that demographic and splits out advertising for cultural groups. So this was like a dream 5, 6 years ago. Now they're doing it. Narrowcasting is going on in New York and LA. Narrowcasting is taking the same now multi-path capable signal, this hose, if you will, from this building that's a smart building, can do anything, and it goes to, there's a food channel, there's an Italian or an Irish or whatever channel, a I Love Cars channel. It's cable concept on steroids. And this is really cool. And this is using the cell phone technology. Last is data casting, where the last several stations that I've designed and built 60 television stations in 7 countries. And the latest ones are using their master control, if you know what that is. That's where it goes out, you know, signal. Okay. They're doing, well, WPXI in Pittsburgh, NBC Cox is doing 7 businesses out of their master control. Yes, they're doing news. Yes, they're doing weather and sports. They're also doing 7 other businesses. They've created their own cable network for Pennsylvania. All out of this new box, okay? Which is the same buttons, they just go to different places. So data analytics is, I mean, it's a big deal. SMPTE 2110, you guys know what that is? Everybody pretty much? Okay. So, it's ubiquitous distribution. I just finished the new, if you guys ever done Television City in Hollywood, CBS, it's live from Television City in Hollywood. It's the American Picker Show or whatever. Okay, by the way, Pickers is coming to my building.
That's awesome.
They're coming out, Mike Wolf and whatever. So,
You just passed away.
what's that?
One of them just passed away.
Frank Fritz did, at 60, but Mike Wolf and his brother Robbie are coming out in May.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. It's like the fun part of all this, I think. But, you know, this is voodoo. This is like 2110. So, Television City in Hollywood, which has been every show that my generation watched growing up, was done in television. We park in Gilligan's Island Lagoon, you know, the Mary Tyler Moore show. We just moved Price is Right out last summer to a Target warehouse. It's been in that stage since 1974. And so all of this is changing so much. The thing that I've designed with my team that is in now Studio City, a guy named Michael Hackman bought Television City for $18.5 billion. He wants to turn it into apartments and retail and restaurants, which is, can't believe they're doing this. But we build a bigger one and a better one, but it's going to be a new technology. The switchers are going to be touchscreen. They're not going to be buttons like we know what company that?
Corona.
Corona in there. Yeah, you got buttons in there. The Super Bowl last year was all white touchscreen. That's how we wiped it for 200 million people. The 2110 thing is still in Bugsville. We did it in New York for CBS, and it's still got problems. The one in LA has still got problems. It will change everything. There's 5 companies that are doing this. Everett's is one of them, Grass Valley, which you have all over the place here, is another one. Imagine, which is the old Harris Group, and Sony. I'm very tight with Sony Crispin. Sony Crispin right now is the automation black box, if you will. No people are involved, which we'll talk about. Virtual production is number 4. Sony, VisRT, the black cam robotics, this is called complex human follow cams. The complex human follow cams are no operators on the robotics, no rails, no dollies.
I showed him videos of
You got it, okay. So you know what that one is then, right?
Yep.
Automation, number 5. So automation is use driven. Imagine Magellan is the big playout system we're going to see at NAB this year. Sony Crispin. 4A, F-O-R-A. They're putting out this hybrid thing out of Japan. It is changing everything on merging companies. Companies are buying other companies to merge their technology. 6 is media distribution. That is exclusively the 8K 24G thing. Amazon Web Services, AWS, who I work with every week, they have Media to Cloud, which they're doing, which is an intelligent migration cloud thing. That is basically what everybody is leveling their playing field to. It's changing their buildings, it's changing the architecture, it's changing what happens in the building. This is 8K and at 24K or G bit rates. 24G bit rate is the thing that's really pushing this heavy duty power. And number 7 is the basically motion picture. Let's just go to that. So, do you all know what RedCam is? Are you familiar with it? Okay, so RedCam was basically invented by the Oakley guy that does the sunglasses, you know, and he decided he always had this super interest in what, cinema could be. Developed this thing, built 2 models in New Zealand, built 2 prototypes, and from there, history was made. I remember when it was introduced at NAB, and young adults coming out of school, like you guys, were selling their houses and cars to buy a RedCam so that they could go. Were you one of them? You was one of them. I knew it. I knew with your 1,000 cameras. Yes. So Peter Jackson started this on their first real all-digital movie. Nikon bought RedCam last year.
And I heard they bought it for their sensor
They did.
technology.
They did. Well, they bought the package, but yeah, it was the toy within the toy.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So you've got that, you've got Blackmagic, the URSA, they're 17K cams, 65 millimeter. Hitachi, which you have in your studio, their new native 4K is going to be the new thing shown at NAB this year, which is a hybrid cam. These are totally different cinematography cameras. They're changing everything with how you see cinema. Canon and of course Fujifilm. Graphics, VisRT is probably the king right now. Live production graphics, changing workflow. So when I do a newsroom right now, working on WOIO here at Channel 19 in town, and their news is kind of old school, if you will. It's the old way they do news, where the news director just wants 4 helicopters and a bigger office and a hot tub and a wet bar. We're changing all the workflow for where news is assimilated and how it's really coming together, which what your generation wants to see. They don't want to see Bob and Mary on the anchor desk going, "Hey Bob, what do you think the weather will be today?" "I don't know, Mary, why don't we look out the window?" You guys are not buying that. My son's 30, he doesn't watch it, nobody's watching. So this graphics thing with Ross Video and what AWS is doing, their new cameras are going to be RF controlled over bonded cellular. You know what bonded cellular is? Bonded cellular are 3 companies. LiveView.
Which they have here.
You
No,
have
we don't.
LiveView.
We have high vision now.
Okay.
They got rid of LiveView?
No, oh really? That's interesting. Because LiveView was the biggie in the beginning, and then there was
I think the contract ended and something.
Yeah,
like
it's
that.
all about contracts and sell things on the back. Great, that's good to know that. So anyway, all of that's going to change the camera. It's not going to be people motivated. So just to close on my thing, I think we're at the time, right? But now, just to close, let me give you just briefly, the revenue cycle of a show, when I started with NBC was, you did a show, you produced it, you wrote a script and a storyboard, and the first year it didn't make money. Second year, Cosby Show, Cheers, all this. I worked with Brandon Tartikoff back in the day when they were the shows. They were bringing the revenue in, but the first couple of years they didn't make it. Then they went to cable and they went to syndication. Bill Cosby became a billionaire, not from his show, but from syndication. Jerry Seinfeld, from their syndication, and where that went. So where this is headed is, how many people do you think, to close on all this, how many people do you think there are in the world? Guess. Throw it out.
Over 8 billion.
You are right, 8.1 billion.
I thought it was 8.2.
That is very good. Okay, so how many people are there in the United States? This is down to eyeballs. It's going to be a point here. 340 million. Okay? How many cell smartphones are there in the world? 7.5 billion smartphones. How many in the US? 310 million. So, YouTube monthly watchers are 2.8 billion. Facebook is 3.1 billion. TikTok is 1.6 billion. Instagram is 2.2 billion. Those are the viewers. They're not off the tower out in Congress. This is your future, where this is going. This is where the change is. 85% of the American households in America have a TV set and one smartphone. Less than 1/2 of those in G generation watch any kind of over-the-air or cable television. It's all on your smartphone. The baby boomers are the only ones, hello, it's me, are the only ones really watching anything on TV. And 60% of all under 30 age group don't watch any TV at all. So, when Netflix was #1 and owned everything, there's a great book, y'all should buy it. It's called Binge Times. It's a red book with white letters. It's at Barnes & Noble. I don't sell the book. I just heard the keynote at NAB last year. It's about the wars of binge, okay? So now you've got Paramount Plus, which I just finished, Peacock, NBC, Amazon Prime, Hulu, YouTube, Tubi, Max, Fubo, Disney Plus, Philo, Pluto, Roku, Sling, Apple TV, Apple Plus, all these, they're probably gonna hit 30 by the NAB time. They're the new generation. They're what's taking it over. There is where it's happening. And it's all happening with new equipment, which I kind of shared with you guys. So does a lot of this make sense in the bigger picture? I mean, you're in school right now, learning from this gentleman right here and all your professors about where all this is going. I'm just the outsider guy designing television stations, motion picture facilities for a living. But I can see this going to dinner with these executives from NBC and CBS. Just so you know, to close on that, CBS is owned by Paramount Global. That's where I get my checks from, okay? Paramount Global owns MTV, VH1, Viacom, Paramount Pictures, Paramount Plus, CBS Television, and a bunch of other things. Right now, they are 400 million in debt. They admit it. The son of Oracle, Skydance, has got the bid in to buy Paramount Global for $40.2 billion. That bid is probably going to go through. It's stuck right now. But on the morning that they announced that, CBS laid off 3,200 people the next morning. That's what's going on here. That's the kind of change. ABC is up for sale, and ESPN, which is doing terrible. CBS, Peacock is okay because the Olympics did pretty well. They carried them through, but it's only a Band-Aid. PBS is broke, dead broke. Can't even pay the light bill. I've turned down 3 PBS jobs in last month. So here's where it's going. Here's the close. You've got to decide in this room with this degree program, like my uncle said, you never know what's ahead of you. Right now, my jobs that I'm working on, I'm doing a Native American cultural city in Oklahoma for the Native American tribes with our Buckminster Fuller's partner, Thomas Zung, who lives in Cleveland. I'm doing the SNL exhibit for the Saturday Night Live. I'm doing a NASA control command center out by the airport. And I just picked up a job in the Bahamas to do a soundstage and entertainment center. It has nothing to do with my NBC career. That's how things change. And that's how the platform gives you where you're going to be. So I don't know whether we're out of time for questions.
No, we can take some questions.
Any
You
questions?
can see this fight too, because Spectrum
Yeah.
now is throwing in all of the streaming services for free if you're a Spectrum cable customer. So you can see that they know that where it's coming from.
They're totally on board with that.
Yeah, so their answer is,
I mean,
we'll
you gotta
give you
give them
Netflix,
credit.
we'll
These
give
are
you all
smart
those
people.
things.
These are smart people. And by the way, guys, it's all about money.
Yeah.
All about money, no matter what you look at. Whether it's fees, or what I get for a salary, or whatever. So, yeah, any questions you have that, of all these ridiculous AI, AR, VR, IoT, OTT, IOU, whatever, AK-24G, and the big one, 2110. You gotta have a question or two.
What do you think of those news channels that are like these news channel ones that are supposed to be complete AI with AI humans?
I'm so
AI
glad you brought that up. I was gonna throw that in there.
Yeah.
So there's a company in Iowa, okay? And they're doing local television, doing it in Detroit right now, where they have no knowledge of what's going on in Detroit whatsoever. They're an AI operation doing weather, sports, and news in Iowa that get information and present it over a station in Detroit. It's all AI. It's machine learning, for what it's worth. That's a great segue.
Yeah, we watch some
Yes,
of their.
absolutely. Got one question. Good deal.
Can you tell more about like the robotic cameras?
Sure. So the robotics, when I started with when I did WMAQ, they were the first robotics in the country. Huey, Dewey, and Louie. We had 3 of them. And they were running into each other and crashing, and people were, it was a mess. Now, it's you're gonna see at this convention I keep speaking of, you're gonna see robotics follow the heat off of an anchor, or a talent, or a person by voice box, voice actuated. When they speak, the camera swings over. And that was like thought of a year ago that would be pretty likely. Well, I mentioned 2 of the companies doing it. They are actually doing it. So, but you still have to have a robotics operator. So, but that replaced 3 very expensive union camera people. And by the way, you guys know the unions? Do you know who the unions are in the business? You should know them, because you either want to be in them or you want to be a management and against them. I've been both. I still get a pension from NABET. NABET, which are the camera button pushers, National Association of Broadcast and Technical Engineers. IATSE, which run the show in Hollywood. They're the stagehands. They put the gear up and all that. You've got ASTRA, which are the news people. You've got IBEW, who are the technical people. Those are, they really are running the show. And so they have held a grievance for me in New York, because I moved a door that shifted a stool that had a lavalier microphone hanging over it, and the union said I was moving their equipment. Yeah.
Do you think that it's likely that another like massive strike with like the writers and actors could happen again with the AI stuff?
Absolutely. IATSE shut down Hollywood. Hollywood is in a real bad place right now. Not only the fires, which impacted our
Yeah.
but IATSE stopped the show.
Do you even think like that'll also affect the camera unions and more than
Absolutely.
just
1,000%. And the networks want to get rid of them badly.
get rid of the unions?
Yes. And right now, so when I started the TV City job in Hollywood, we were talking about who was going to operate the equipment in Studio City where we were moving to. And already IATSE was out there embedded in the area, and they said, we're not working with those TV people. We're cinema people. You IBEW people, you're TV people, like you're scum.
I think
And
our
that
only news
was-
station,
What's that?
our only news station with unions left is Fox, isn't it, pretty much?
Pretty much,
Yeah.
on the news, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I did KCBS and KCAL, which are the same mushed in one box, but they're all IBEW.
Yeah.
But they won't even have a cup of coffee with IATSE. It's turf. It's
I
all
belong
turf.
to them, he's not lying, they won't talk to each other.
They won't, no.
Mm.
Which is like, what, 3rd grade? Come on.
How bad do you think it would be for all of it to shut down?
Well, here's the thing that I think would be a quick answer to that. Just visualize. Right now, all of Hollywood, Nashville, New York, Chicago, where I did a lot in, is all union run by operators and button pushers. Okay?
Yeah.
When the strike goes through, that usually cleans house, because they find out that literally admin, secretaries, whatever, and maintenance people can do the same jobs as the union people do, and they weed that out. So it's a clearing now. I see with all these things I just shared with you, by the way, I gave you like 5, I had like 10 written down. All these things are gonna change manpower. You're not gonna need people to do those tasks.
You think they're gonna become more private subcontractor type deal?
They will be.
So they're all gonna be running their own
Yes.
companies?
That's
So they
exactly
better go
what
take
it is.
business courses, learn how to pay their taxes.
Well, right now, just so you can visualize, do you know who the top 5 companies are that own all of media in the American footprint? I'll give you the first one is Nexstar. Nexstar owns over 300 television stations of the 1,800 I mentioned. The next one is Sinclair. Sinclair owns 280. The next one is Scripps. They're a big one. Scripps is huge.
They come here and talk.
Do they? Yeah, they're like the third player. And then you got Cox, which is now Apollo, because they were merged. And you've got Gray, who owns Channel 19 here, who I'm working for.
Yep.
They have 180 stations. So these 5 or so entities own more property and entertainment companies than the networks. I think the network, again, 3 Blind Mice. 2 books you should buy out of here. 3 Blind Mice on Amazon or whatever, and Binge Times.
Very good books, both of them, I've read.
Those really, I have a signed copy of the first one on 3 Blind Mice. I'm in the book, actually. This is about the corruption. What it's about, just briefly, this guy, Ken Alueta, he worked for ABC, CBS, and NBC, and he became an executive level in all of them, and went to the cocktail parties and the private parties of these head of ownerships. And he heard them while he's having these drinks and cocktails, talk about like they were gonna beat us. We're NBC, nothing but cheap, no bonus Christmas, nobody cares. So they're never gonna beat us. Well, guess what? He was taking notes the whole time, and he put them in a book, and it's hysterical. What they actually, how pompous they were. Yes, sir.
Is this a 3 Blind Mice book?
What about it?
Is that quote from that book?
Yes. Oh no, that's all of us who work for them, especially No Bonus Christmas.
Okay, so there's 3 books now.
No, that's just a line we had. 3 Blind Mice is a book with a test pattern on the front, color bars in the front. And Binge Wars is the other book. Those are the 2 books.
And what's the one where I can find out wacky quotes?
Well, that's just from him.
That's just been me. That's just what we called our employer.
When you work in this industry, you get a lot of quotes for your employees.
So I worked for NBC when they were GE. Jack Welch, who was the chair. I did his office actually, and he was Neutron Jack. He would walk through a TV station and just fire 20 people. I don't think that department is needed. Just lay them off. That's why he was called Neutron Jack. So it was all about money. Everything was about money and how much money we could save. And the big word back then was outsourcing. And outsourcing meant non-union. It meant outsource others, like you just said, to do the job instead of having. So when I got to WMAQ in Chicago, and I came from Cincinnati, where the director and the TD, and there might have been 2 guys, 2 gals that were doing the thing. So I go to NBC in Chicago, and there's like 7 people on the front deck, all nabats. And the first one says, "We're ready," and the second one says, "Ready to roll." Third one says, "Rolling." The next one says, "Speed." These are all guys back in the 80s making $100,000 a year.
Those were the good old days, though.
The easy days. And then the TD, or the AD would say, "Ready 1, take 1." The TD would press it and press the button. All those 7 people were making $100,000 back in the day when it was a lot of money. It was a lot of money back then. It's not now. Can't go to Target for $100,000. Okay, any more questions? Did I go over my time?
No, you're still good. They gotta be here till 1:45, so they got time.
Okay. Yeah, I love the questions. Please, yeah, either one. Yeah, you're in the one? Yep.
How long does it usually take from like when you graduate to like if you want to work in like a really well-known area like
That's a
NBC?
great question. And I would put that in 3 little categories, okay? One, you really have to nail your specialty of what you want to do. If you just want the glamour of the glitz and to go into television or whatever. My thing with architecture was, when I graduated from the University of Cincinnati, 105 graduates, 1 woman, Ginger Medill. She survived it. I'd say now we what, 60% in architecture probably?
Yeah.
Right, at least, maybe 70%. And the ones that work for me, better than some of the guys, I mean, really different niche. So I chose, graduating from architecture, a niche that I wanted to be in, which paid off for me. It's the same for what you're doing. You want film? Do you want what's left of television? Do you want the new content media, which are 32 venues of different things? You should like focus on where you want to be. Don't let the money drive you. If you build it, it will come. It happened for me. I made pretty good money in the career. That first thing is that. The second thing is, when you get in there, go for the top. Go right over the people. Don't be a page. Don't be like a starting gopher for someone. When I got my TAP job, I wrote to all the CEOs of the top companies. I sent 12 resumes out and got results from 3.
That's where LinkedIn is good for this.
LinkedIn is perfect for that. Didn't have LinkedIn back then. I live on LinkedIn now. I'd say that's number 2. Jump right over the people that are just gonna be the dead weight that you're gonna become a superstar doing. And then like the third thing is, where do you see the future of that going? Where do you see, 4 years ago it would have been Netflix. It's no longer Netflix. They're not the top and the only game in town now. They're probably, well, they're still the biggest viewership. But, you know, I don't know if that answers your question, but that puts it in, because like when I graduated from architecture, a lot of the friends that I had, they went to either medical or they went to sports. Right now, the hottest thing in America in media, hands down the most money coming in, is esports. Okay? You got 16-year-olds making $1 million. You have to have mom and dad sign for the check. I've designed 2 of those, and one was to be in Medina here. They lost their funding. This is the hottest thing going right now, which is a TV network arena.
We have an esports team, right?
Yeah, there's a couple here, aren't there, right now, I think.
Yeah, we have 4.
Is it downtown, the one?
Well, we have one on campus.
On campus.
You have one here?
Yeah,
Yeah,
we have
like
an esports,
Penn
we have an
State one,
esports thing here.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Is it successful?
Marshall put in all the camera equipment for us.
It's
They
pretty
do
good.
okay. They lose a lot of their games. We're not as good as Akron. Akron's a lot better.
See.
The one thing Akron
They have
is
like
good
they have
at.
like a full building for it.
The one thing Akron used
The
good
one that I
at.
did, it's actually a huge arena, monitors everywhere, and it has satellites so that you can play with Korea, Germany, Japan, whatever, all over the world, and it's bi-directional. And it's, by the way, AK-24G, because it's no latency and high visual. That's very interesting. I didn't know there was one on campus. That's pretty cool.
It's not that advanced, but you do
Yeah.
have it.
But it's successful though, right? It's
I mean, they advertise, I auditioned to be a commentator.
yeah.
Like, they have commentators and everything, and
Sure,
what games I'm
right,
familiar with, so I
right,
didn't get
yes.
it, but like, yeah, they do I know they at least do Overwatch.
Yeah, and the new
Like,
aligning
depends
of
on the
colleges are talking about making it a whole
Oh,
degree program.
I think it should be a degree program. And by the way, the revenues are fantastic. And
Yeah, their studio's pretty nice.
pretty cool.
The other thing about getting a job is also who you know.
Oh, it's everything.
Yeah, so like, you know, I pick up a phone, I can call John Steely or Adam Sharp, and I'm just like, hey, I want this job. They pick up a phone, they call CEO, and they're like, you're now having an interview.
I'd love to tell you, I'm just this walking genius guy. I'm just darn lucky. It was who you know at the right time. That guy calling me out in Nebraska, that was my trigger for my career. Because once I said I worked for Al, by the way, he's 90 years old. We're still great friends. We just had lunch in Santa Monica, Cheesecake Factory, and he's 90 years old. And when he retired from NBC as the chairman, he went back to school at 80 years old to become a lawyer. That's the kind of
Wow.
drive this guy has.
That's what you
just
should-
the nicest guy in the world, and a billionaire.
And that's
So
why
I
you should
hope that
be,
answers some of it.
that's why you should be working with all your professors, because they all have connections, so therefore they can
Again,
help you
I've got
jobs.
cards here with me, if you guys wanna call me or whatever, just ask questions.
Oh,
or
I will
so.
absolutely take
I was
it.
about to, I was
Absolutely.
gonna ask, like, is there a way to keep in contact?
Oh, absolutely. I don't, please don't do the LinkedIn, because it's like so much of, it just all gets buried. Just give me a text or an email, and that'll be the best way. But I'd be delighted to help you all in anything. One thing, the last thing on this, again, what people are throwing away, and why my museum is what it is, 5 dumpsters of this thing. Like we did the renovation in Florida for the PBS station down there, where they did Flipper, this big ocean scene TV show back in whatever. And it was like, you know, a 50,000 square foot studio. We filled 5 dumpsters with beautiful, perfectly fine, I got some of it, good gear, because it's just changed. In the new building, they wouldn't want to move the old stuff. So we threw it all away. Talking cameras, tripods, SSL audio board.
Is this kind of, why do I stutter when I talk to you? Is this like the kind of equipment that would still be like decent for like a stage
Absolutely.
production or something?
Channel 19 gave me their old cameras. They're 4K. They're on the big pedestals. There's 7 of them. They were going to throw them away. Those camera heads were $160,000. The lenses were $80,000.
Guy with the
Throw it away.
grip truck company right down the street from you guys, all of his equipment's all out of dumpsters. Yeah.
Most of my stuff came, like the microphone. When I was management scum, after I was union, became manager, I befriended union guys. I still play in a rock band. I play guitars and do all that kind of thing. So we were friends. We weren't supposed to be friends because they were union and I was scum management. But they would put a box in the dumpster and write Don on it. They'd say, you might want to go down in the dumpster. There's some microphones in there.
Real quick, with the 5 minutes we got left.
Sure.
They all have to take their SBE exam in here.
Oh.
All right? That's what this whole class is.
Oh my
Yes.
gosh, I'm certified.
You're part of them.
Yeah, well,
And also tell
I've
me
been
about
in
our
FBA
local
since
club.
1980. What's that?
Our local club.
Well, actually, they just did a whole great thing at the Brown Stadium
Yep.
for one of I encourage you to be in SMPTE and SBE. SMPTE is Society of Motion Picture and Television Engineers. It can help you with that.
The school pays for them all to
SBE.
get all their SBE stuff.
Well, student is free, right? I think for student.
No, they charge you $55 a person.
It's
So, but,
160.
but I got the school to pick all that up for them.
But SBE is Society of Broadcast Engineers. They carried me through the industry. And that is where you network. And to answer your question about what you want to be when you grow up, young lady over here, that being connected there, it's all about networking. You'll meet a person that will get you a WKYC or WWS or whatever.
What was that other?
SMPTE is the biggest. Society of Motion Picture and Television Engineers. They gave me a Lifetime Achievement Award 2 years ago, which was really pretty cool. They are the definitive all areas of media. Cinematography, television, broadcast, recording studios.
They also are our standards too.
They're worth joining just for the magazine you get every month, because it's all the new stuff like that I've just been sharing with you. That's a good point. I didn't know that you guys were doing that. I highly recommend.
When I came in,
I didn't want to slight you.
Just easy question. Do you have a favorite thing that you've found?
A favorite thing that I like to do?
Or like that you've collected or that you like to do or anything?
Got some pretty cool things. And they were all just the Mel Blanc mic is pretty cool and stuff. And when I was told to clean out David Sarnoff's office at 30 Rock, he actually began NBC in 1920. I got his chair, I got his books that he wrote. They told me to throw it all away. And the television was demonstrated for the first time ever at the 1939 World's Fair, and it was done with an image orthicon camera. A conoscope camera. I have the iconoscope that did the 1930 book. They did Felix the Cat and the thing, so you can come see that too. They were going to throw it away. Don't believe it.
At 30 Rocks, they also have the Muppets closet.
Yeah.
Where Jim Henson, like.
Actually,
used to hang
when I
Muppets.
worked at WRC, Willard Scott became a really good friend. He's passed since. He was the weather guy that did the Smucker's Jelly on Today Show. He was very close friends with Jim Henson. And they on the studio walls, they did sketches.
Yep, they
things
pictures of
on the pictures of Kermit the Frog and all these things.
It's on a radiator, isn't it? Like at the
Yeah.
radiator, yeah.
Have you seen it?
Yeah, I've been there, yeah, I took the whole tour, I got a tour
That's
from.
good.
I
Well, that was my home for 7 years with Tim Russert. Tim Russert was probably the greatest boss I ever had in my entire life. He was 58 years old and had a suite. His eyes rolled back and he fell dead on the floor. One of the nicest, greatest guys to ever be.
Tried to intern at 30 Rock, I did Dave Letterman, that's how I got.
Did
over there,
you?
yeah.
Studio 6A. I did his one.
Very
I did,
cool.
I did David Letterman's office, Jane Pauley's office, Bob Wright, the chairman's office. And architecture is,
All there.
gotta make it fun, you know? Unfortunately, it was all before iPhone, or I would have had thousands of pictures. I had my little camera. I hope this wasn't too boring for you guys.
All right, thank you
All right.
very much.
Thank you.